Have you ever seen a normally calm person completely lose their sh*t? What happened? I had a friend who was in his 60s, a functioning alcoholic, but he was the most calm and composed guy I have ever known. He never used to raise his voice or swear. Everything was done with meticulous precision. He once explained to me that if you use vulgar language and shout all the time, then you will have nowhere to go when you really do get angry. I had worked with him for about 3 years, never heard him raise his voice or swear before. The week before he had been shafted on his pay and the manager promised to get it sorted by Friday. Friday rolled around, and it had not been sorted. So when my friend walked up to the manager in the open office and declared loudly, "Where the fuck is my money? You promised this would be resolved." The whole office went silent and the look of dread on the manager's face was haunting. The money was in his account by the end of the day. That was him losing his shit. He once explained to me that if you use vulgar language and shout all the time, then you will have nowhere to go when you really do get angry. I'm gonna turn this into a poster and hang it on my wall above my PC, so I never forget. Quit the job on the spot. He went out of the office showing the finger to everyone and telling us to go fuck ourselves. Nice dude. I miss him. My brother did this at his old job. Our dad had just passed, and his boss had said to a coworker, "I don't know why he's still caught up about it. It's been 2 weeks, he should be over it by now." When my brother found out, he grabbed a sheet of paper and scribbled "I quit" on it, walked into his boss office, said "fuck you," and left. One time in high school, a couple bullies were up in this other kid's face. Dude was just sitting there like Anton Chigurh or Private Pile, no expression and staring straight ahead, clearly not hearing a thing. One of the bullies inched closer, and the kid decked him as hard as he could in the face. The bully was knocked to the floor, speechless with his nose bleeding everywhere. The kid then calmly stood up, still with no emotion, calmly packed his things, and made his own way to the principal's office, as if nothing at all had happened. It's still one of the most brutal things I've ever seen. It was like right out of a movie. Maybe he was thinking really hard about what one-liner he'd say after knocking that bully down. I used to do seasonal work sorting tax returns. Like 500 people in a warehouse size room sorting through returns, stacking them in boxes, etc. This one guy on my team, huge dude, a gentle giant, really nice. Suddenly one day he smashes the table he's working at, then flips a big box full of paperwork. It flew over my head and 20 feet away. He threw the table out of his way, then stormed out. Turns out he was getting his paycheck garnished for something or other. If the garnishment was for back taxes, the irony of the situation would have enraged me too. Mechanic I worked with is getting verbally abused by a customer claiming he ripped him off. Guy's going off saying all sorts of racist shit, then stepped up, like he was gonna swing. Henry beat him to the punch, literally. Then he calmly walked to the back office and called the cops on himself. What did the cops do? Arrest Henry for defending himself? One of my coworkers is a really calm, quiet, easygoing dude. We had a receptionist at the time who was terrible. Would constantly leave the front desk phones unattended. We would have to stop mid-service to answer them ourselves and check people in and out. One day, she pulls her same bullshit. The phones are ringing, people waiting, and she's nowhere to be seen. He just does a big sigh and screams her name in the loudest, angriest, most fed up "I'm fucking done" scream. She scurried her trifling little ass back up to the front in seconds like a little cockroach that knew it fucked up. Lol, I can imagine the rage. I was chilling at a friend's house as a kid. His dad was the chillest, nicest guy. That day, my friend's mom, also super nice, was across the street talking to the neighbor about something that I can longer recall. Neighbor was one of those guys who never respected common etiquette, music blaring, parking his shitty boat in front of other people's house, cars parked on the lawn. The neighbor started screaming at HR mom and we all went out on the stoop to see what was happening. As soon as we got outside, the guy called my friend's mom a cunt. Well, my friend's dad heard that and went full Hulk mode. He ran screaming across the street and just fucking decked the guy and crouched over him shouting warnings and threats. Took a while for his wife to calm him down. I don't think any of them had ever seen him react to something in that way, maybe even the dad himself. Warnings and threats, after conking him in the face. This is exactly how villains should be explaining their evil plans. One of my teachers in high school was the calmest dude. Never yelled, never told kids off, would just laugh and smile, and wait for us all to calm down, and then continue with his teaching. One day we must have been particularly rowdy, and we weren't calming down like we usually did. He couldn't get a word in edgeways. I could see him getting increasingly frustrated, and eventually he just bellowed choo pee 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 and the entire class was shocked into silence. He never had to do it again. LMAO. Reminds me of a Vietnam vet history teacher we had. Everyone would always ask a related question. To know he would just go off about for the rest of the period, if we didn't feel like going on about whatever today's topic was. Everyone always found out later that he lost 3 of his 4 kids to cancer due to his Agent Orange exposure. This is not my story but my dad's. Growing up his best friend Leaf was a quiet shy guy that was a bit socially awkward. In school he wasn't physically bullied, but this one kid teased him constantly. This would have been late 50s, early 60s, so kids were expected to just tough it out. My dad would usually confront the kid, but one day a girl runs up to him and says that Leaf and the kid are fighting. My dad runs over to save Leaf, but when he breaks through the circle he finds the bully flat on his back, Leaf sitting on his chest, holding him by the ears, and smashing his head into the pavement over and over. My dad tackles him, wrestles him to the ground and screams at him, asking what he's doing. The thing that stayed with me from that story was how he described it. It was like there was nothing in there. I felt like I could see the back of his skull through his eyes. Luckily they were kids, so the damage was serious but limited. The bully escaped with stitches and a concussion and Leaf had to talk to the school psychologist. My dad and Leaf stayed best friends, and when I met him as an adult he was still quiet but less shy and awkward. I worked as a line cook with a chef, who I became really good friends with. Really chill dude, easygoing, and actually super fun to cook with. He taught me most of what I know about cooking, and I owe him a lot for my success. Never really saw him get mad until one day, we were getting slammed during busy night, and one of the servers said something that really ticked him off. Not sure if I ever heard what it was, but next thing I knew he had sent the deep fryer basket flying at Mach 1 across the kitchen, nearly missing the dish skid, and shattering a light bulb. He stormed off, and 5 minutes later after a smoke break, came back and casually continued cooking, as if nothing had happened. He apologized about it the next day and we never talked about it again. The restaurant industry is a stressful place. Oh yeah, when the servers start asking stupid questions it's very easy to get pissed. There was one particular time when Matt got super glue in his eye while on the line. Trying to continue to control the chaos of the kitchen he goes into the back, and you hear 3 loud bangs up against the side of the building. Dude had a sledgehammer he swung when he had so much pent up anger. That wall still has all the damage from him 5 years later. This was probably about 12 years ago or so. My best friend broke up a fight between 2 of his younger brothers. I was scared shitless. His voice hit a tone I'd never heard up to that point, and have never heard since. Our friends dealing with their family hits differently when we have never seen it before. My math teacher in middle school. He would even brag about not being angry and how it was a useless emotion. One day this kid pissed him off so bad he swiped all of the kids' shit off of the table in front of the whole class and kicked him out. Mine was my high school history teacher. Dude was great, always cool and collected. Really one of the best teachers I've ever had. He also happened to be a former Green Beret, US Army Special Forces. One day we were in class and all us kids were being rowdy, obnoxious, and not paying attention in the least. All it took was him snapping with a "shut the hell up" for the entire room to go silent. He went right back to teaching, but there's still some heavy tension in the air. After a few minutes he apologized for losing his temper, but someone in our group collectively apologized for us and told him it was totally our fault. Only time I've ever seen a room full of teenagers humbled like that. Worked with a guy at scout camp who was in charge of the archery range. Super quiet and reserved guy, very nice and down to earth. One day we had a scout draw his bow and point it at one of his friends as a joke. I've never seen a kid get the fear of God put in him so fast after my friend ripped him apart for that. Firearms are no joke. That's the way. When I did my mandatory military service, we were warned in no uncertain words that if any of us would ever point a weapon at another person on the shooting range, that the instructors would be very ungentle about handling the situation. From what I've heard that wasn't a bluff. Boy do I have a story. I've been in the USCG for a few years now, and along the way I met a really calm guy. We'll call him Joe. Joe had a wife and 2 daughters. He's soft-spoken yet still authoritative when need be. Always is nice to others, and works very hard. Then there's another worker. We'll call her Jill. Jill is a power trip, annoying, loud, disrespectful to anyone lower ranking than her, always talking about her, definitely fake, sea stories, and what we call a blue falcon. I could go on for days about her. Anyways, one day on duty, Joe and his crew were out on a rescue case for over 6 hours throughout the whole night. Him and the crew got back to the station at 2 or 3 AM. They were so tired they collapsed on the couches in the lounge, which is connected to the conference training room, which is divided by a folding partition you can pull out of the wall. Well, morning came and there was a note on door to the backroom crew is sleeping from late night case. Do not disturb. Of course, Jill completely ignored the note, busted into the room, turned on all the lights, talking and laughing way too damn loud at 7:30 in the morning. She started to tell a ridiculous sea story which always starts with "so, when I was stationed," and immediately Joe shoots up like a rocket from the couch and walks towards the partition in the wall mumbling shit under his breath, like goddamn fucking shit fucking note on the door. He was vigorously fighting the partition, yanking it from the wall, and pulling it across the 20-foot long rail. Jill is watching him, and as he's almost done she goes, "I can leave if you want." Completely unwarranted. Joe says that's what the fucking door is for. He closes the partition and lays back down. No one said a word, but I think everyone gained a little more respect for Joe that day. I used to see this woman in my building every day. Very friendly. We always checked on each other's lives. We had lunch a few times over the years. It was friendly to a certain degree. A couple years passed. She was much older than me. One day, riding the elevator, she told me that she was saying goodbye. I said I was sorry to see her go and asked why. She said she was retiring that day. I asked if her office was throwing a party or if she was celebrated. She turned to me and her face contorted into an image of rage. She clenched her teeth and said she didn't tell anyone in her office, including her bosses. She only told the HR person last week. This was her last day, and she was never returning to see or talk to anyone in her office again. I can understand her. When workplace becomes so unbearable that you don't even want to see the faces again. I fear the rage of quiet people, because I don't have any reference on how they go mad. Let me tell you, it will either be cold and calculated, example, slowly stand up, look somebody in the eyes, then break their nose, or it will be as if Doom Guy himself possessed them. When I was in my late teens I was financially irresponsible and borrowed money from my grandparents to move out of my mom's house. We made a plan on how I would pay it back in installments and I only missed 2 payments. With each one I called my granddad and asked if it was okay. He was always cool about it. One day I got a call from him and he was livid, screaming at me on the phone and I could hear my grandmother crying in the background. He was the angriest I'd ever heard anyone in my life, and I was terrified. He wanted to know why I hadn't made the payment that month, but I was sure I had. It turns out I had accidentally set the automated payment to be drawn from the wrong account, and it hadn't done it. It was an honest mistake on my part, and I explained that to him. I transferred the money immediately, and he instantly calmed down. I later found out he had become an alcoholic after he quit smoking, and he would talk to my grandmother like that regularly when no one was around. Sounds terrifying and a sad situation. My mom and I had a fight about finances, life and everything when the financial crisis of 2008 started to affect us. We were shouting at each other every hurt and everything from birth till that day. Things started to fly. It was carnage. My sister grabbed my mom and pushed her to sit down next to me while scolding us about our behavior. Then she slapped both of us on the face, so we were totally stunned and shut up. Then she went on talking about how we a family should keep it together in dire times instead of fighting each other. Did your family keep it together? Hope that slap helped. My first semester in college I was in a math class with a horrible teacher. The entire class hated him. The girl that sat in front of me was very sweet and soft-spoken. One day, I don't remember what set her off, but she just snapped and started screaming at him. It caused such a commotion that someone called security to check if everything was okay. The teacher quickly dismissed security and went back to teaching like nothing had happened. I've noticed this with people who are aware they're assholes. When people call them out on it / lose their shit, they try to sweep it under the rug, move on as quickly as possible, and pretend nothing happened. My boss does this. I'm very chill, but every once in a while he pushes me over the edge and I tell him off. He often won't even respond or make eye contact, and then pretends like it never happened a few minutes later. If they acknowledge it, then they'd have to apologize, and that'd hurt their pride too much. My science teacher was normally a pretty cheery / funny guy. I remember one day half the class didn't do the homework, so he gave us a lecture on how we should work harder. He wasn't too angry, but was just a bit disappointed and talked in that generic strict upset teacher voice. For some reason I looked up at him with a smirk on my face and said okay. He then decided to release all the pent up anger in his life on me and screamed as loud as he could for the next 5 minutes straight. It's the angriest he's ever been, and he's known to not lose his temper and be level-headed most of the time. Poor guy. Must have been bottling in so much. Kids are difficult. Opposite story, but I've seen a very reactive person become completely calm, and that's when I realized things are very bad. My father is very reactive and agitated easily. Doesn't take much to set him off. When our country was going through war, there was a city that had a big strategic importance. In my age he participated in liberating it. In 2020 I remember the night we lost that city. I never seen my father so quiet and calm in my life. And it actually sent chills down my spine more than seeing him agitated ever did. The part that made me scared was I expected him to absolutely lose his shit. Seeing him stressed and upset would bring some consistency to my view of him. But seeing him so quiet was so odd, it was scary. If you don't mind me asking, what's the name of your country? My 5th grade teacher was a very calm and collected individual, except one time, when a kid said her mother was a whore. She lost it. She was screaming about disrespect and stuff and even called her mom, put her on speaker, and asked if she was a whore. In front of the whole class. I miss her Mayo. Wait, the teacher called her own mom on speaker to ask if the mom was a whore to prove to the class that she wasn't? My mom. We had what we now refer to as the Jerry Springer Christmas when I was 7 or so. One aunt hated her sister-in-law and started screaming at her. Then shoving started. Husbands got involved. Then it just continued to devolve from there. My mom went straight into mediator mode and tried to calm everyone down, but it wasn't working. She decided to come check on us kids and found my cousin and me holding each other and sobbing because we were scared. The next thing I hear is her scary mom voice screaming over everyone, listen here you motherfuckers. My kid is in there crying on Christmas because her family can't keep their shit together for the one day a year we all see each other. You're gonna march your asses into that room single file and apologize to each kid individually. Then you're going to shut the hell up until I get them out of here. We are going to go find look at lights and this family better be the picture of goddamn Christmas joy by the time we get back. My mom never really cussed in front of me and only ever used GD when things were really bad. That side of the family didn't celebrate Christmas for a few years after that. All I can picture is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Gonna be the happiest set of assholes this side of the nut house. My aunt. 4 years she was always super calm, always joking and in a good mood. In my 15 years I had never seen her angry at anything, and I had definitely never heard her cuss. Until Christmas 1999. Some backstory. My mom had 2 younger brothers. One, asshole uncle, was / is a complete dick, and the younger one, good uncle, my aunt in the story's husband, is a pretty average guy, and gets along with everyone. 4 years my grandma enabled my asshole uncle, and despite my grandpa's best efforts he just became more of a dick. Summer of 1999, asshole uncle and my now ex-aunt are separated with a divorce pending. Her still being nice to her nieces and nephews called my grandma and asked if she could drop off our Christmas gifts, and my grandma said that was fine. She shows up and my uncle is pissed. My grandma told all of us kids, including asshole uncle's daughter, to stay in the family room. My mom comes in and says that asshole uncle tried to punch his wife in the face and my good uncle pulled him back and they fell through the neighbor's split rail fence. My always super calm aunt stands up and says, I fucking had it with his wife beating bullshit. I'm calling the fucking cops. I fucking had it with this psycho asshole. I'm stunned. Can't believe it. My grandma is in a panic because again, she enabled it and him going to jail for DV would likely cost him his job. Fire chief. Asshole uncle takes off and shortly after we all leave. Christmas ended a bit early that year. To this day I've yet to hear my aunt cuss again and only ever seen her get upset about something, and it was again about my asshole uncle. My GF got mad at me like went insane because she thought I stole her lipstick. It was in her hand while she was screaming at me. You okay? My best friend after someone called me a FG. She beat him over the head with a book and got suspended. 10/10ths best girl. Jesus does hate figs. I was the normally calm one. I was in first grade and this 6th grader would follow me and my friends after school and bully us, pulling our backpacks, mocking us, tripping us, throwing things at us, etc. One day, he's pulling on my backpack laughing, and my friends are yelling at him and begging him to let go. According to a neighbor who saw the whole thing, my face went stony and emotionless for a moment. Then I pulled my arms out of my backpack straps, turned around, and punched him square in the nose. His dad tried to get mad at my dad, but apparently the boy failed to mention that I was a first grader, so that was funny. Imagine your circa 12-year-old son getting beaten up by a 7-year-old lol. I had a master sergeant at one of my units in the army. Dude was half asleep most of the time. I don't think I ever heard him talk more than once. One day all the guys get called into the large classroom and he's in there looking upset. He launches into a rant about how easy it is to pee into the toilet instead of on the ground in front of it. Dude was passionate about where people pissed. Drew a stick figure diagram all angrily showing how you use one hand to stabilize and aim the pee into the toilet. I had to keep from laughing because he seemed like he was about to blow his lid. TBF, would you want to trust the aim of somebody with a rifle if they can't even hit the toilet? I'm the usually calm one, but about 1.5 years ago my ex-wife was crashing at my place after a breakup sent her into a spiral and the kid came to visit me for a weekend before just the kid was to move back in for school. This weekend turned into her spending a week in the psych ward. I sat in the air with her for 8 hours, started a new job the next morning, was visiting her when she asked, was helping the kid do his online schooling from a fast food restaurant. After I'd get off BC we didn't have Wi-Fi at the house. She ended up staying with me for 2 months. I legit slept on a pallet in my own floor, so she could have my bed. All this stress steamrolled into an argument one day where she called me stupid or something along those lines. Knowing I'm very sensitive about my intelligence levels, I just blew the hell up and was screaming back at her. I was so mad I was shaking, made my throat hurt from being so loud, and at one point wanted to physically reach out and just slap her. I've never felt the urge to actually hit someone before, and it scared the hell out of me. I'm the same man whose own mother didn't hear me raise my voice until I was 25. I hope she's moved out and you're taking good care of yourself. Sorry, friend. That's hard. I was in a high school history class in 10th grade. I was the quiet student who did their work quickly and efficiently, just so I could keep reading my book in the back. Huge fantasy nerd. However, the 4 class clowns were also in that class. Our sweet, older lady teacher, Mrs. Z, was a German-born woman who lived through the Holocaust in Germany, and being half Jewish she was a bit of an anomaly when it came to her experience dealing with the Gestapo and SS. She was in the middle of talking about her life experience to help relate some of the horrors of the concentration camp. She was really, truly pouring her life history out for us, so we could understand the horrors of what she saw/heard about, and the ridicule/targeted harassment her family was victim to. These class clowns kept making jokes, talking over her, and being complete assholes, even making an unfrank joke, in very bad taste. Our teacher ran out of the room, crying. I stormed up to the front of the classroom, and went on a goddamn, yelling, full pissed off tirade at these assholes for making a teacher cry, a woman that put her heart and soul into her work, and tried to help us so much. 5 minutes later I noticed the principal was standing at the back. I don't remember how long he was there, because I was too caught up in calling these assholes out. He took them, and me, to his office. I was told to just keep my cool next time and let the admin handle it, but those 4 boys were removed from her class and given a week of detention. Mrs. Zed became one of my favorite teachers from that point onwards, and I made sure that, even if a lesson was a little boring to me, I didn't read my novels in her class. She inspired me to become a teacher myself. Yes me. I had a friend who I was heading out of town with for work. He suggested we spend the night at his mom's and sister's place, because we had early flight, and they were close to the airport. We were on the east coast close to the ocean. Well, this family was fucking nuts. My friend had recently mudded some drywall for his mom, and because of the humidity it took a long time to dry, but his mom kept yelling at him to paint it. His sister's kid about 2 years old was drinking coffee at midnight. The family only screamed at each other. The mom was just a wacko. Anyways, it was only about 3 hours I was able to keep my composure with them until I just fucking lost it. I screamed at everyone, and retreated to the garden shed, where my friend had built his own refuge. We eventually call a cab at about 4 AM to the airport, way earlier than our flights. Great guy, Ed the forklift driver. He tried Chantix to quit smoking. We worked in a warehouse with assembly lines packaging refrigerator components under Whirlpool/Maytag contracts. It was a pretty stressful job at times. One day we were packaging an order and we ran out of a shelf due to poor communication, so the assembly line had to stop. It absolutely snapped. He took off on his forklift to get the shelves. When he came back with the shelves on his left, he drove through the spider area, where forklifts aren't allowed, slamming through thousands of components, and running his forklift directly into the assembly conveyor belt, destroying the entire operation. Bodies went flying. He threw it in reverse, and slammed backward into containers, stacked all the way to the ceiling, causing hundreds of metal/glass fridge shelves to come raining down. It was terrifying, and he nearly killed 8 of us working on the line. Great guy though. One time my 9th grade math teacher Hoss, normally super chill, had the class doing some Kahoots and some kids were throwing books at each other. So dude walks over and tries to get them to stop, and one of the kids throws a book at him, and I guess that was the last straw or SMTH, cause he proceeded to pick up said book and fucking slam it against this kid's head, then yelled at everyone who was throwing books to get out the classroom, which was like half the class. He retired the next day and we didn't have an actual math teacher until about a month later, and even then it was pretty much just the football coach going over basic stuff, until we got the 12th grade math teacher 11 days before school ended. BTW, I won the Kahoot. D. Ugh, I do not envy the job of teachers. It really takes a special kind of person to get into that work. I hope that guy is having a nice, stress-free, kid-free retirement. Good job on your Kahoot. In a speech, Pope Francis once said that, although people have the right to speak freely, they should not be offensive. He told the group that, if his good friend, who was standing next to him at the time, were to say something insulting about his mother, he would punch him.